I'm Molly Ratermann, and I'm a writer-director, sometimes producer. And I live in LA. I'm from the Bay Area. So Variety just announced last week my first feature film that I wrote and directed. We just finished. So like fully finished post, everything. We're waiting for our festival premiere. So, I could be very depressed in about a month or two. But hopefully we'll get a cool premiere. And that's my main thing right now. It is a bit off the wall. It's a comedy horror, and I don't really write horror. I don't actually at all before this film. I don't write horror. And I don't really watch horror very much. So it was really cool. I had an opportunity where someone was like, hey, I'm doing these low budget features, and I was really trying to get my first feature made. And so he's like, do you have any horror ideas? Because that's where the funding's kind of coming from. I went on like 12 bachelorettes in 1 year. And I kept having this reoccurring nightmare about this murder bachelorette happening, and my sisters and I being on this murder bachelorette. And it was like, it was just really intense. And this reoccurring thing that I started kind of talking about with my sisters. They're like, you should make that into a movie, And I'm like, no, horror is not my thing, Then this opportunity comes along. And it was so in my brain that I wrote it in a week. And then we shot it 2.5 months later. So obviously that wasn't the final draft, but, it was very off the wall for me. I learned a lot. I tried to make a horror film that I would want to watch. A feel-good horror is what I keep calling it. So my debut feature is Making a Bridesmaid. It is a high-concept comedy horror film, and it's a murder bachelorette. So every woman has probably felt this way on a bachelorette party, but it's two sisters. They go on what they think is going to be this basic bitch bachelorette party, and then the maid of honor actually is like, hey, there's only 4 bridesmaid slots, and it's kill or be killed. So the only way out is if you become a bridesmaid. So it's, kind of dives into identity and, the roles we feel we need to play as women. How far have we come when there's only so many seats at the table? Are we going to compete with each other, or are we going to have, female solidarity? So it explores a lot of themes through ridiculous comedy. So it's a lot of fun. That was one of the biggest lessons on this project was sticking to my guns on that a little bit, and again, I have lots to learn about the horror genre in general. Obviously, like, it's brilliant in the way you build tension. You can reapply that to comedy, as we know. It was a good learning thing for me to stick to my gut of, because a lot of people at the test screening of the film were really happy. Like, a lot of the women were like, hey, I'm so happy that you made a feel-good horror. Like, I'm so happy that you I don't like horror, but this made me, I really enjoyed this. So that was really cool for me, because I'm like, that's my audience. That's me. So there's got to be other people out there. And it was, it was a good lesson on, sticking to my guns and not doing the status quo. I wanted to make sure at the end, so discomfort's good, don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of uncomfortable moments in this film, but I kind of made horror moments, I tried to make horror moments about not the typical. So it's not necessarily horror about getting murdered. There's a whole sequence about getting a period and all these different things. So I was trying to reapply, horror. There's a lot of satire in this. So there was an ability to kind of like, shoot for the moon a little bit on these ridiculous ideas. But I just wanted everyone to leave I'll give away too much if I there is hopefully a twist that people will like. Leave there feeling like, okay, I feel okay about, I'm not going to go home and be afraid at night or whatever. Like, I felt like good about, the end result of our heroes. I think that's my biggest thing is sometimes there's these like unnecessary deaths just for this like, shock factor. We all feel so much anxiety at all times in the world. Why? I don't know. I have a hard time going into a horror film because all I feel is anxiety the entire time. So I'm like, I want to watch something that makes me laugh and relax. And maybe something jumps out, scares me, makes me laugh for that. But so obviously other horror fans out there are going to hate me for saying any of this, that's just the way I was coming to the genre. I got a great writing coach, 5 or 6 years ago that gave me I'm a very like intuitive writer, and so structure is something that's a little harder for me, and now I'm very well versed in it, but it took a long time for me to sort of like get my process and figure out, my daily routine with it and how I get into a flow and how I, take these ideas from my head and get them on paper where you actually understand it, right? And he was really big on 7 days a week writing, 3 pages a day at least, or at least, show up for an hour and a half. And that process has worked really well for me, even at there's so many more nitty gritty details to it, right? But just sitting down and just letting yourself go, okay, I'm not even gonna look at the 3 pages I did yesterday. I'm just gonna do my 3 pages, that gives you a draft in a month, right? So that sort of titrated process was really helpful for me. But again, on this last film, it just was when it hits, it hits. The idea was just flowing out of me, and thank God for that. I feel like it's going to be one of those things where in, every script I write from here on out, and I'll be like, why can't I get back to that? Why can't I do that again? But that was my little lucky strike. But yeah, just showing up, doing your 3 pages, or at least an hour and a half, at least trying to sit down and do something. Morning pages, I think every writer probably does morning pages. The 3 pages of consciousness, doing that before I write is very helpful. And yeah, I like talking about my ideas. I have some, close friends in the industry, and I like, the more I talk about it and they're able to listen, you have to talk to the right people, because other ones want to, well, you should do this. And, it's like, okay, that's not what I need right now. I need excitement and interest and curiosity. And, so I'm a big believer in kind of talking out the idea, and you go, oh yeah, gosh, I didn't even think of that. Or, they're interpreting it a certain way. So, I guess that's a really, mashed up way of talking about my process, but that's the overarching part of it. Feedback and rewrites are the hardest things really when it comes to writing. Well, I shouldn't say that, but pretty much. It's hard not to take things personal. It's hard to see the note behind the note. It's hard to pick the right people to get feedback from. And this particular one, my writing coach a little bit. He was super helpful. But it was interesting because the first draft they were really excited about, and then some of the investors were worried about the ending of the film, and they really wanted me to change what my favorite part of the film was. So the whole crux of it is this, there's a twist to it. And so I actually went through it felt like an existential crisis at one point, now I have to change my whole script and whatever. And then, kind of went through a gnarly week of doubt, and I was like, nope, I'm going to stick to my guns on this. And, I'm really happy I did. And then they're like, okay, we'll see eye to eye. We see what you want to do then, if that's really the case. And I need you to take that risk for me, because this is the only thing that sets it apart, is this part of the film. Not the only thing, but you get it. Definitely sent out for feedback. Super important, again, who you pick and how you decide where they're at in their lives too, depending on how they want to give you feedback because of their own insecurities happening at that time, or, good things, bad things happening in their life. Sometimes you have to be like, okay, well, they're coming from a very personal space. They're not seeing my project objectively. And, of course, sent it out for notes, did a lot of notes, and it was really quick. I was doing rewrites, obviously, sometimes over 2 or 3 days, just because we had such a small timeline, to film. We had 2.5 months for the rewrites. Otherwise writing competitions, obviously, and different studios, feedback is so gnarly to get, and rewriting is even harder to reapply. But just keep doing your 3 pages a day, and eventually you get there. Ego is the problem in every aspect, I feel like the more humble you stay and the more you're in a learning phase and trying to just not take it to heart, take it personal. It's really hard to not let your ego get in the way or get defensive. I mean, I remember in the past that I've gotten feedback before that it crushed me. I really thought I had the best draft and I was winning competitions and all this. And then someone I really respect in the industry gave some pretty scathing feedback. And it was one of those things where it was scathing feedback, but at the same time, they gave it to me it was just telling me like, hey man, your zipper's down or whatever. They said it to me so casually, and they're like, okay, so we're gonna go grab lunch. And I'm like, whoa, you just like, I thought your studio was gonna come onto this. Like, you just blew up my world. My ego was like shattered for a long time. But yeah, I think what I realized was it's a business. People are giving you feedback because it works or doesn't work. They're not telling you that means you're a terrible writer and now they think differently of you, and your ideas are shit or whatever. So the ego thing's hard because as writers we are alone so much. We're so excited for that little token of like, wow, this is an amazing script. You're dying for that feedback. So not having those expectations and not letting your confidence hinge on feedback and just going, okay, that's the work. That I'm going to learn from that, and that's the work, and get back to your laptop. The funding that we were working with, they basically wanted to do X amount of films that year. And then on top of that, we needed certain weather for our film. And I really wanted to shoot in Lake Tahoe, which we did. And we kind of were like, okay, well, it can start snowing early October, So between the funding and then it basically was like, oh, we would have to push this almost an entire year. And the whole magic of this film was the fact that we were nimble and indie and low budget, and that we were just kind of this moving momentum train. So obviously it helps because you can't overthink. And to be honest, I remember a lot of times in the writing process where for once in my life, I was able to kind of tell the negative thoughts and the negative voices, be like, hey, that's not helpful. It was like, I don't have time for this. And that was literally, I wish I could get back into that phase right now, but because I'm in the classic writer's block on something else. But yeah, it was actually kind of great that I had this impending timeline. I was like, I was just like, all right, yeah, only helpful thoughts, only positive things, only solutions. Other part of my brain, you can shut up, So it was kind of interesting. Often, there's a lot of cliches that you start to understand on these deeper levels. And, I know in the industry, something that a lot of, I think Quentin Tarantino and all these different people, they're like, make the movie you want to see, you are the audience, just like let you be the audience. And it's really, really hard because you don't even realize that you've got these voices in your head, or maybe you want to impress the person you're dating, or, oh, they wouldn't like that joke, or, you got feedback from someone, or you want to work with X studio. And you become an absolute head case. It's so easy to do. So it's really hard to just go, I'm making this for me. I'm doing this for me. I'm shooting for the fences for me and for my watching purposes only, but man, is that hard. I thought that initially as well. I think, I don't star in everything that I make. This particular role was there was two things going on. I realized there's another film that I've written that I feel very strongly that I want to be the lead in. And I've gotten a lot of feedback of, that's, you're not of value. You can't do the film, for the money it takes and all that. And that's totally fair. I get it. It's a business. But I thought, well, gosh, if there's any time, no one else is going to bet on me. No one else is going to, because I want to direct that one too. And they're like, you can't star in it and direct it. And that's too much, too risky. Even though we have a million examples of people who do that. So I was like, you know what, like I got to take a chance on myself. And this is the only time that I probably could do it and show them that like, hey, I can star in it and I can direct in it, at the same time. Also the role itself was very specific. And so with the timeline we had, I was like, casting wise, this is going to be so hard to figure out. And I know I can do it. So I just wanted to kind of bet on myself, I guess. Done countless shorts and web series and a docuseries and whatever. And it's funny because, I will say I get now, I had those other projects I was trying to get off the ground. I was very kind of like stubborn in the way that I'm like, no, you're telling me that I can't, that I can't have X budget for my first feature. Like I'm not, good enough and whatever. And everyone was like, no, you don't understand. Your first feature is a whole different animal. Like you're entering a whole new world, a whole new territory. You don't want that pressure. And I'm like, no, I can do it. I can do it, And after doing a feature now, I was like, oh, I get it. I completely understand the insane amount of doubt you go through. You know, you end up working with people who've obviously, you know, been around the block a lot more times than you. And so everyone's testing your vision. Everyone's trying to make sure the captain of the ship is trustworthy. Everyone has their version of what they think should be happening. So it takes a lot of, it's very lonely and not at the same time, because you have amazing collaborators around you, right? But then also you have to really stand up for, gosh, well, maybe they know more than me? Do they, you know, maybe that isn't good, or they're not seeing it, so I guess it's not, you know, valuable to the project. So yeah, I learned a lot about doubting myself and not doubting myself, learning to not do that and second guessing things and all that. That was probably the biggest hurdle, was just the mental game. You know, it's like a sport or a track meet or whatever. There's so much psyching out happening. And I'd say that was probably one of the biggest hurdles, as well as not having enough money for, you know, extra crew. And, you know, as we all have those things with indie film. And it always makes it better, right? Having those hurdles makes everything better. And, but yeah, and then obviously, I mean, it's an ensemble cast. We had 9 people. You know, it's 9 females on a bachelorette party. So that was pretty intense, and doing 12 pages a day and trying to do quick rewrites at night, or sometimes like in the moment or whatever was. But again, like it was great, because you're in that adrenaline state where you're like, you can't think about it. You got to just do it. You got to make a decision. And I think I really like working that way, to be honest. It's a very anxiety-driven way of working, but, you know, gets things done. You know, what a great way to work out 1,000,001 kinks, experiment. Every single short film was pretty gnarly to make. For whatever reason, I make my life very difficult. I'm like, oh, we're going to do a Western with horses, and I have no money, and we're going to have a Western town and whatever. And in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to make a suicide movie and bring us to Death Valley and still have no money, you know? So it's like a lot of crazy stories. Every filmmaker has those. That's the point of short films, right? You just kind of end up in these crazy situations, cops coming after you, all the above. I would say it made me a really good problem solver. And really good at looking at story from many angles and knowing that there's always a solution, and that the solution is going to lead to a better story. So I think that was a huge, and I still want to keep making short films, because I love the ability to, like, yeah, experiment, try something new, fail. I mean, that's the nicest part. You fail, nobody likes it, who cares? You know, I mean, yeah, you lose money, but you become a better filmmaker, a better storyteller. Working with people, you get to work with new people every time. And yeah, so I think it's like a little playground. Just get people excited about your story. You know, I think start calling people up, reaching out, saying, this is what I'm trying to do. This is, you know, I mean, hopefully you would have some sort of a network, you know, with different people in the industry or other writers or whoever it is, right? I think people are afraid to pick up the phone sometimes or reach out and ask, you know, for help and or just like, hey, do you know anyone? And really the importance of getting someone on a phone call or in person, and just so they can hear the passion you have for your story and understand, you know, why you're making it, why you want to do it. I think that's like, it goes a long way, you know, because we're all in this, you know, because we're passionate about it. And so lighting that spark, people will help you do favors. They will, you know, let you learn from them, you know, and yeah, be open to learning. Yeah, don't go in like a bulldozer, but yeah. Yeah, no, that's a funny question, because I feel like I just gave myself imposter syndrome about it forever. But until maybe, you know, I finally made a feature film, and all of a sudden I went, well, does that make me finally a storyteller? It's like, well, you've been doing this, you know. And, you know, the cheesy thing to say is that we're all storytellers, and we all, you know, that whole ordeal. But my uncle was a comedian, so growing up, he's my godfather as well, and I really looked up to him. Did my first play as a kid, and I don't know, I was always inspired by like the Charlie Chaplins and Woody Allen, unfortunately, is a hard one to say now, but, Woody Allen was a big inspiration for me, and Elton John, which is random. But, they're all very unique storytellers, right? I loved writing. I just never knew, and my teachers were always really encouraging me to do all kinds of programs outside of school. And I was like, well, I want to be in front of the camera. I want to do acting. I want to do, this whole thing. And I never thought storytellers, I didn't realize how little credibility they get, if we're talking about writing storytellers, right? And so I think I saw the shiny version of being on stage and didn't realize that actually so much of my passion came from writing, and how much I did that growing up and in school, and finally was trying to make content for myself. So I was making shorts and putting myself in them, and I'll just write this thing really quick. Well, I've had this idea. And I'd be on set doing acting things, writing, but I just was like, nobody told me you're a writer. Nobody said, you can, make this a career. And so it took me a really long time before I was like, well, I'm not a writer. And I'd already done 8 shorts at that point, and they're like, well, yeah, you are. You wrote these things. And so, I think I just thought, I don't know, that being a writer meant you had to be writing the next Terminator or whatever, that sort of a thing. So I would say literally last year I finally was like, okay, fine, I'm a storyteller, but still struggling with, because you're always learning and growing, and there's always someone who you're like, man, that is some brilliant work. Am I even a writer? Do I even know what I'm doing? So, but it's great because it keeps you learning and growing. And so I was always a storyteller and just, I guess, clueless. I loved it. Oh yeah, big time. I mean, it's good that it keeps you humble, right? But the ways, something that any therapist would tell you as well is staying curious about yourself through, especially the writing process for me, staying curious about, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like an imposter? It's really obnoxious advice to put it that way, but truly, it's a big part of the process when you're writing. You have to stay curious about why you have writer's block, why you feel like you're not good enough to make this film, or I think imposter syndrome is, luckily everyone experiences it. So the second you start to doubt yourself, people around you are like, no, what's happening here is, imposter syndrome. I guess I would say, this is going to sound really simple, but fun. I would say, I try and add an optimistic, fun feeling to all my scripts, and that makes it sound like it cheapens it maybe, or that it isn't some hearty drama that's gonna, blow your mind. But I actually think fun reels people in to actually, feel comfortable enough to feel deeper things. And so I think it's really important to me that I am constantly keeping, even if it is a Western that's, a little grittier or whatever it is, finding a way to keep the fun and the quirkiness to it is really important to me, because also that's just how I like to live my life too, I guess. So it sounds like a preschooler, but I think it's important, and people respond to that. I mean, I will say that's one thing I can confidently say has always been there. Growing up, especially, would just, kind of shoot for I remember one time I did an essay, and I'm really bad at essays because, as I said earlier, not great at structure sometimes. So I think I did a whole spin on whatever the essay was supposed to be, and made a whole completely different story. And there was writing dolphins and God knows what, and some drunk priest named Captain Underwear. I don't even know. It was ridiculous. I was younger, whatever. They ended up passing it because they were like, oh, we just loved how fun and creative this was, and I was like, okay, people, whenever I'd share my stories when you're younger in front of the class or whatever, that was always what I gravitated to and was well responded. So that was something that pretty confidently early on was a big part of my voice as a writer. And then I did the classic, I want to be esteemed, and I want to be able to write these dramas and make everyone cry and do all these things. And I still think, some of my stories can affect you that way. But the second I got rid of the fun, there was nothing unique about it, and Yeah, it just wasn't me anymore. Yeah, I actually met Felicity and Shayna at the Power of Women Summit. The Rap was hosting. What's been really interesting is because I've been in post-production on my film, it's been kind of awesome because I've been trying to write in the background. And so obviously tons of opportunities are coming up, all the time. And I'm able to talk with Felicity and Shayna and just be like, hey, like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. And they've done a really amazing job of just like advocating for my story, be supportive, trying to like help me review materials, connect me with different people, say, hey, yeah, we do think this is a good fit. This isn't, necessarily a good fit. So like, just supportive, just super supportive. Yeah, I was supposed to be at the event in Cannes, and then I got stuck in an elevator for 45 minutes. So, that was also a cool opportunity that I missed because I was in an elevator. But yeah, so it's just been a really, the amount of opportunities is like, it makes you want to write more because they're so specific too. It'll be like, we're looking for nostalgic, female-led, whatever. Like, well, I could think of an idea like that, So it's cool because it kind of gets your motor, running and yeah, gears turning. A lot of that initially was I was trying to package the project or get bigger meetings, with those scripts. And so it was really helpful starting to get Laurels and some credibility and value stamps, because I'm a nobody, right? And so how are they going to trust you? Why are they going to spend, 2 hours of their time reading your script and considering it? But the second you maybe become a semifinalist or a finalist or win, it's like, oh, okay, well, somebody thought it was good and I didn't have to read it. They did, so it kind of puts you in like a different ballpark. Again, like credibility. I know that's a kind of lame thing to say because you would want to be in all of the competitions, but I think there's some that are maybe more credible, obviously, than others. And again, value adds to your film if you, the Mark Duplass Screencraft Fund, that kind of a thing. So those stamps on your scripts are the ones that I'm like, okay, this could do something for me. Like, I hate to say that, but it is what it is. I don't want to just win arbitrarily. Like, okay, cool, we won like 50 awards. It's like, well, I want a purpose behind it and I want it to, elevate my career in some way. Honestly, we talked a lot about different hurdles that I guess, especially all the mental battle hurdles. But I'm just going to bring it back to this. I would just say have fun. Like, just don't forget to have fun. And that's the simplest thing in the world. But it goes such a long way when, you're actually enjoying yourself and you're finding a way to have fun and, that joy comes through. And stay curious. I would say, yeah, have fun, stay curious. That was such a funny, I used to run development at a company in London, and we had this amazing screenwriter on for this World War II project, and that got completely pulled once the pandemic happened, and we were, $50,000 of development in, and like, I'm making my first feature. I was like all excited about it. We'd been working on it for 7 years and it was a whole thing. But that got pulled. But the best thing about it is I'm not good at staying still in one place. And I do really well with routine, but I love to be like, oh, but that looks cool over there. I'm going to go travel there and I'm going to road trip there. And it made me sit with myself about like what I really want to do with my career, what I want to be writing. I was a writing machine during the pandemic. That was like my therapy through the whole thing. But also because I'm sat still, I joined like 3 different writing groups, had an amazing community because of it, and ended up making like 3 or 4 short films during the pandemic, just because I was just in this like generative mode, so like I feel a little guilty because I was not losing my mind, and I'm a big nature person. So for me, in one way it was really nice because I was able to do work and camping and a lot of reflecting and kind of like really honing in on my skills at a time when, that was a big part of it. Honing in on my skills actually was huge. It gave me an opportunity to actually do that. I don't think I would have had that time, I think at the time I spent all my money obviously making my short films, and it was a fund I was doing to maybe buy a house one day. And then I realized, as much as I love California, I live in California. What am I thinking? And also, it's the end of the world. Like, COVID's happening. What better way to spend money than, making what you love to do and getting better at it? So, unfortunately, it was a very good time for me. I feel really bad for saying that, but somehow healthy. You've been asking for this time. The amount of friends that I had that, they're like, oh God, if I just had a month. If I just had one, I would just go to this retreat and I would whatever. And I'm like, well, now we've got it. So you have no one to blame but yourself at this point. In fairness, mentally was a very difficult time. So I know everyone had their own struggles going on. First of all, thank you for listening to my rambles. And my Instagram is Molly Kinsale 37, which sounds like a third grader made that handle, but it is what it is. Kinsale. And then my website is mollyratermann.com. So, and there's an Instagram link on there, I believe. So, I'd love to, see who else wants to connect.